Now, since 1993 to 94, in the general public, there are 12 million plus biochips in the population right now.
Now, what do you mean by mind control? There's an awful lot of technologies involved in that.
Yes, of course, in the old days, it involved drugs, chemistry, torture, that kind of thing, and that actually continued on until the 1960s and 70s. Once we get into the late 80s, early 90s, mind control was developed through satellite transmission, so that you didn't have to be taken to a specific location to be programmed. You could be programmed eating lunch or sleeping or going about your daily business.
Similar to the film They Live.
Similar to that, yes.
So can you describe the techniques involved in these types of mind control?
Yes, and it was actually pre-Montauk project. Montauk was actually 1970 to 1983. But we have to thank the Germans during World War II for developing procedures that fractured the mind pattern of a human being through torture. They developed what is called psychic driving, where you bring a person to extremes, several hours or days of extreme cold and then extreme heat. You can give them starvation for several days, and you overfeed them, make them sleep for days, and then keep them awake. Fracture. The mind doesn't know what to expect. And then this was developed further.
Are you telling me there's a possibility that electric current generated in a fashion such as this could possibly cause heart disease and/or stroke?
Yes.
You have to know that that's a mind-blowing thought for a lot of people, including me.
I'm aware of that.
This truly is the most sophisticated weapon system humanity has ever created. It involves every aspect of science. It involves tactics that are unimaginable unless you just have a devious criminal mind. And it destroys lives. It's being used on innocent people. Now remember, in the Senate Intelligence Committee report, they said 25% of the people they tortured happened to be innocent in the end. So this is still going on, but it's just they don't want this exposed. And that is why I am speaking forward. The sophistication is enormous. You have to understand neuroscience. You have to understand physics. You have to understand psychology. You have to understand many different aspects of all human knowledge to understand this weapon system.
1/200th the size of a hair, made out of biological material, non-X-rayable. It's not something you're going to swallow, eat, or run in the bloodstream. And is driven off of alkalinity in your body. Now, since 1993 to 94, in the general public, there are 12 million plus biochips in the population right now. According to a Denver police officer, if you know the number of a person, you can track them within 10 feet anywhere in the world. I've known this for a number of years. I have an affidavit from a manufacturer and some other things. Look it up on the satellite the minute it's punched into the iridium system. All your records are being dumped into the iridium right now. And he'd gotten in my face and said, I heard you on Art Bell, and you need to explain to people that they need to take these biochips. This is the best thing they can possibly get, because not only does it attract their kids, but it's going to help them think because it's a programmable chip. Because the American people are stupid. My face, leaning over across my table, and he's saying, you're giving out national defense secrets, and this is the only way we can extract our soldiers. This is the only way we can communicate with our soldiers. But, sir, don't you cross the line of constitutional rights when you don't tell them you're putting the chip in? Up back, and he looked me square in the eyes and said, my soldiers do not need to think for themselves, and they do not have constitutional rights. They're stupid. They think you're stupid. They think you're sheeple. You really need to go get these documents. The KidScan program. And KidScan is a program where in Miami, Florida, in 1989, they implanted 8,000 kids with biochips. Goes into the numbering system that there are 92 billion numbers for these microchips, so they can give everybody at least 2. They think You all are so stupid, you're not going to go look on the web. And if you believe this, that people are going to call you crazy. All the technology is out there. Washington Times, October 11th, 1993, Martin Anderson goes into Hughes Aircraft and how they helped develop the biochip. Biochip is biodegradable. It will come apart. There's a flaw in it. And one of the manufacturers of the biochip sat down with me for several hours in Denver last year when I was at the Denver Preparedness Expo, and I started telling him a little bit of what I know. He got wider and wider and wider and about passed out, and I had to walk with him to the bathroom a couple of times because he was just getting so scared. How do you know all this? Well, I have friends in the NSA and the CIA, and one of my uncles is still in the agency. And said, but this is top secret. Nobody's supposed to know but 15 people. 43 to 53, they started to develop a biological chip with a biological battery. And they tried acid and they tried alkaline in the body by running a biological system. And this is nanotechnology.
Not only with hearing voices in their head, hearing voices of their perpetrators in their surroundings, but being attacked with directed energy, which can cause headaches, heart palpitations, muscle spasms, muscle twitching, heartburn. I mean, just a variety of symptoms. Now, some of that can also be done with EEG entrainment. As we talked about, that you can actually bombard the brain with a foreign frequency that corresponds to the EEG tracing of someone with, let's say, flu-like symptoms. So if your brain is bombarded with that external frequency, it will slowly entrain that frequency, and then you will display the symptoms of the desired trait that they're trying to make you display.
Question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology. When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you want to give anything you'd add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
But you sound like you're willing to experiment with that.
I think that's the point, and I think, we have, I think, from the beginning of this conflict, I think General Franks has been very open to looking at new things if there are new things available, and has been willing to put them into the fight.
Well, let me go down the list of some of these that I came up with. We've got DARPA has a sonic projector that was reported on in 2007, but of course it had been around for quite some time before then. Army has something they call voice to skull. We got the Air Force using microwaves to create sounds at Brooks Air Force Base. We've got the Marine Corps with their Medusa project. We've got the State Department, as reported by the Washington Post in 2005, working on voices implanted in people's heads. We've got a couple of companies, one that has patented something called hypersound. That's American Technologies. Has also got Holosonic Research Labs, also has a patented version. So the military-industrial complex has been all over this. When you see something this wide, this is not just one little research project from one organization. And this is something that 5, 10 years ago, it was being reported on in even mainstream press like the Washington Post, and yet nobody knows about this.
Well, the people who follow the internet pretty closely, and certainly the victims of this technology, know about it. But you're right, there's been a lot of research done into how to put voices into one's head. It was found long ago that if you can put a voice into someone's head, you can do several things. If I put a voice that's foreign to your normal thought pattern in your head, that becomes harassment. And the harassment over time will make you display signs of schizophrenia. When you go and tell people that you're hearing voices, we've been patterned to turnkey see that as schizophrenia and not even look to see if there's a legitimate source for it. If I put a voice in your head that's in your voice, and if you pattern a thought, like I tell some of these victims, when you read a book, you're actually hearing your own voice in your head as you read. If I put that voice in your head, then that becomes a thought. Wow. And you'll act on those thoughts, and that's how they think that some of this is being used for subliminal control.
Wow. I know that in some of these articles I was reading on the mid-2000s, they were talking about how they were using it as the voice of God, as the voice of Allah, because they figured that it was something that they could use. They thought that the people that they were going against that were Muslims were very religious, superstitious. And
that was used in the field of battle. The voice of God weapon, which is actually called SQUAD, or Silent Sound Spread Spectrum, was used in the first Operation Desert Storm. That was one of those scenarios where 1,500 Iraqi soldiers disassembled their weapons, got to their knees, and surrendered to 150 Marines who didn't have enough slip ties to tie them all together because, and this was admitted, that they used Esquad to put the voice of Allah in their heads to tell them to surrender.
Wow.
Before that, in the mid to late 80s, 5 separate inmates from the Utah State Prison had written affidavits saying that they were put in solitary confinement and were experimented on with some type of electronic device that put voices in their head, and all of them claimed that they could tell the voices of the people doing the experimentation on them were responding back to their thoughts.
Wow.
So this has been going on for a while. Unfortunately, it's just not gotten any major media coverage until recently.
So they're basically setting themselves up as the ventriloquists, and we're the dummies or the zombies, right?
Well, it's like I've said in with other reporters and other shows, that guns and taxes won't control everybody.
Yeah.
Electromagnetic technology will.
Wow. Wow.
Are you telling me there's a possibility that electric current generated in a fashion such as this could possibly cause heart disease and/or stroke?
Yes.
You have to know that that's a mind-blowing thought for a lot of people, including me.
I'm aware of that. I was a member of the first ad hoc committee to evaluate the biological studies that were performed for Project Sanguine. And I most certainly sat there and listened to several studies that had very definite effects, yes. Animals exposed grow at a slower rate than control animals. A number of projects have shown this to be true. The second area in which definite effects do appear is that exposure to this type of field seems to produce stress.
Is it true that the Navy repressed that report for better than 2 years?
The Navy did not disseminate the report widely. Human volunteers were exposed to the same sort of magnetic field that the Sanguine antenna would emit. There was a very definite indication that following such exposure for a 24-hour period of time, that these people experienced considerable elevations in their serum triglycerides. We know of, I believe it's 5 specific projects in which positive results were obtained when the projects were terminated and the money just disappeared. There was no more to continue the work.
Now, is this a definite pattern?
It appears to be.
That when a study begins to find that there may be adverse effects, that the money dries up?
Not even adverse effects, any effect.
The unfortunate thing with this type of voice-to-skull or microwave auditory effect type hearing is that it's designed for only the target to hear. In 1996, the Army came out with their addendum to the biologic effects of non-lethal weapons, where they talk about the microwave auditory effect and how even with microphones in the ear canal or microphones attached to the scalp, that the voices can't be recorded. And they go on to say, imagine the incapacitating effect on an enemy combatant when they begin to hear voices in their own head. Another high-ranking military official said, we now have the ability to talk someone to death. So the bad thing is once these victims tell their family members, tell their employer, tell their physician that they're hearing voices, well, I mean, in today's psychiatric community, if you're hearing voices your psychiatrist can't hear, then you're delusional or schizophrenic until proven otherwise. And unfortunately, the psychiatric community has not been educated on the fact that there is technology out here now that is meant to mimic mental illness.
Director Helms, during the Nixon administration, or during, I guess it was the Ford administration, ordered that the MKUltra documents be destroyed.
Which they were.
Which they were. After being specifically told it's a crime to destroy federal documents.
Yeah, they don't belong to you.
Right. Exactly.
Do you think it's, and this is a debate about, a lot of different people in Louisville and West and the CIA-affiliated psychiatrist.
Right.
Do you think it is possible to get people to commit acts that they wouldn't otherwise commit?
I do.
You do?
I do.
You said there are a lot of shrinks at CIA.
Oh my God. There are offices where everybody is either a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and they're operational psychiatrists and psychologists. So you take them with you on an operation to consult with them on how do you get this guy to crack. You want him to just lose his mind. What do I need to do to push this guy over the edge? Right? Or what do I need to do to convince this guy to do something that he definitely doesn't want to do? I used those shrinks on operations. We even hypnotized one guy. He was hypnotized with his arm in the air for 2 hours. Never saw anything like it in my life. And then when he took him out of the hypnosis, his arm fell down. He looked around. He said, "What happened?" And then he vomited. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
So mind control is not a sci-fi fantasy.
No. MKUltra did far, far more damage. Caused just grief and misery to hundreds of people, maybe more. And there are subsets like MK Chickwit, and there are like 5 or 6 other sub-operations that were part of MKUltra that just, caused people to jump out of windows and commit suicide, and jump off bridges.
Over the last 3 years, you have been subjected to the most massive, harmonized, globally coordinated propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world, full stop. With this campaign, the governments of many Western nation states have turned, this is key, military-grade psychological operations strategies, tactics, technologies, and capabilities developed for modern military combat against their own citizens. These are inconvenient facts. The world that many of us believed existed no longer exists if it ever did. Welcome to 5th generation warfare. The battlefield is your mind.